Welcome to all of you. It is a pleasure to have you back on Africa 24. In this exclusive edition of the interview with Mr. Vincent Nmehielle, Secretary General of the AfDB, we'll discuss the new vision of the institution founded on the new 10-year strategy. Mr. Vincent Nmehielle, welcome to Africa 24.
Thank you.
According to the 2024 Africa Sustainable Development Report by the UNDP, the share of the population living below the poverty line rose from 33.3% to 38% in 2023, far from the 23% target set in the Agenda 2063. What initiatives could the AfDB do to strengthen or to implement support to fragile and conflict-affected states in their development needs?
Look, the issue around fragility is a very challenging one. And the bank has a dedicated Transition States Coordination Office that is responsible for dealing with issues of fragility. Of course, where there is no peace, there cannot be a meaningful socioeconomic development. So we do our best to try to ensure that fragile states are not abandoned in the process of seeking peace and at the same time seeking socioeconomic development. Nobody likes fragility. Fragility is from conflicts. We have a number of countries today in Africa that are in fragile situations. Sudan, for example. The DRC, for example. Zimbabwe is a fragile state. As difficult as it is, the bank still tries to identify areas that are critical in supporting those states. One thing that we've tried to do, knowing that in fragile countries, governments are not really in a position to meet the needs as expected, we identify private sector institutions to be able to partner with, to provide those services that may not easily be available. So it's a challenge. We would have loved every country to be stable. So the statistics you quoted is a challenging one. And all we can do is to continue to ensure pursuing peace as well as socioeconomic development.
Making the most of Africa's capital for its development was the main theme of these 60th annual meetings. What is the essence behind that theme?
The theme, making Africa's capital work better for Africa's development, is a critical theme at this time of our socioeconomic development, particularly where support from aid is diminishing. And most countries have taken the position that they will no longer be interested in dealing with issues that are outside their own environment. So Africa is a resource-rich continent, both from natural capital in terms of natural resources, human capital in terms of the concentration of the world's youngest population on the continent, business capital, institutional capital. How are we able to make use of them more efficiently and effectively to address Africa's development? That's the question. They are there, but are they working optimally? Why can't we add value to our critical minerals, to our natural crops? Côte d'Ivoire is one of the largest producers of cocoa in the world. Thank God Côte d'Ivoire has decided to ensure that its cocoa is transformed into chocolate in Côte d'Ivoire, up to 50% of what it produces. That is fantastic. If we can do the same in every other sector of the natural resource that we have, then we will not be so poor in having the resources to deal with our development. But when we wait for other people to assist us, and they're no longer ready to do so, what do? We get poorer. So making Africa's capital, those capital that we know are available, work better for us, cannot be gainsaid. It is just what we have to do. We have to look inward as a continent. Our governments have to be more responsible. We have to cut out corruption and utilize the resources for the purpose of the people. That way, people will not be running away to go to Europe and dying in the seas just because they want to run away from poverty.
The African Economic Outlook 2025 indicates that Africa's economy is projected to reach 3.9% in 2025 despite geopolitical uncertainties and trade tensions. What are the key sectors we should invest more in order to make this a reality?
Look, 3-point-something% is not a fantastic growth. That won't change anybody's life. The only meaningful growth that will change anybody's life is what it is in double digits and above. So I'm not sure 3-point-something% is worth celebrating. And who economists will celebrate it. I'm not an economist, but it doesn't translate a lot into the day-to-day of the ordinary person. But of course, investment in productive infrastructure will help to expand the space available for people to invest, will enable trade to happen much more easily. It will enable African countries, from a point of view of regional integration, to trade with one another. So, infrastructure, massive investment in agriculture, digital economy, these are the areas that we need to be able to focus to attract the growth that we're supposed to have. 3-point-something%. We can celebrate it. I don't know what it translates to on the plate of the poor person in Africa.
I get your point. In 2024, the bank launched a new 10-year strategy. What levers do you intend to use to ensure concrete outcomes on the ground?
Look, the 10-year strategy was developed by the bank and approved by our board of directors and endorsed by the board of governors to chart the next 10 years of the bank in terms of what Africa's transformative needs are. Now, it takes into account the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It takes into account the achievement of the Africa Agenda 2063. It takes into account the bank's experience in terms of the application of our high fives. So it is a robust instrument that is being implemented through our implementation plans. We've developed implementation plans to implement this in the sense that we marry what our member countries need with the plans that we've made and try to meet them at the point of their national development, because every country that comes to the bank comes with a particular development plan to say, this is what we want to achieve in 5 years' time. And our 10-year strategy is so massive, talks about everything under the sun, more so with clear indication of investing in Africa's youth. The governor's dialogue during this meeting centered on the youth, the place of Africa's youth in its social development. How can we ensure employment? How can we ensure investment in the businesses of young people? How can we make young people owners of business and employers of labor, rather than just people who are seeking employment? Now, all that is part and parcel of our 10-year strategy. And if we're able to support businesses of Africa's burgeoning youth who are very innovative, you can imagine what transformation we can have on the continent. So the 10-year strategy emphasizes the youth, women-led business. Of course, infrastructure is a very heavy aspect of that. Agriculture is massive. No country ever became rich without proper food security and proper growth in the agricultural sector. Every industrialization started with agriculture all over the. And so agriculture is a massive part of the 10-year strategy.
So a bit earlier you mentioned investing in our indigenous capital in a context where our states are dealing with rising sovereign debt and high debt servicing costs. What can we do to relieve the pressure on our states while ensuring effective and sustainable development financing?
My problem is, are we borrowing correctly? Are we borrowing to consume, or are we borrowing to produce? That's the difference. If you borrow to produce, you may hardly be indebted. But if you borrow to consume, the debt will pile up. and it affects your ability to develop effectively. That's it. Our governments need to know how to borrow.
So you mentioned the aid or the support of foreign states to Africa diminishing. Now we talk about the U.S. in the 2026 budget proposes eliminating its contribution to the African Development Fund and cutting international aid drastically. In this context, what innovative financing mechanisms would you recommend to sustain our development in Africa?
Look, on the U.S. issue that everybody's talking about, we have not received anything that said the U.S. will not support ADF. We've not, a lot of this proposal people are talking about, we've not, as an institution, received anything official from the UN's government to say we will not support ADF. But the point remains that at the end of the day, donors' money is dwindling. So Africa must rise up to take responsibility for its undevelopment. We need to look for new areas of resource mobilization, particularly domestically. We need to look for new investment from institutional investors. We need to allow the private sector to have space to operate in these areas, to be able to change the trajectory in the life of many poor people in the country. Governments must find a framework where private sector growth can be massively encouraged, because no economy can grow without the help of the private sector. I think we need a massive reorganization of our economies through massive participation of the private sector in the economy.
Mr. Vincent Nmehielle, this takes us to the end of this interview. Thank you for answering.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gents, here comes the end of this program. Stay tuned for more on Africa24TV.com and on My Africa 24.